Welcome to Spill the Tea Radio, where we interview awesome singers-songwriters and those who influence their lives. Spill the Tea Radio explores the journey, creativity, and inspiration behind the songs. My next guest is a singer-songwriter with a lifelong passion for music and has been proudly performing in the GTA for years. She has a love for piano, which began at the age of 12. By 15, she was writing and performing in local coffee houses. Her father was a part-time drummer and singer whose repertoire included all of the big band favorites and crooners of the 40s. This influence is notable in her music styling and writing. Her talent for creating music and lyrics will both stir and soothe your soul. So, let's spill the tea with Karen Thornton. Welcome, Karen.
Hi, thank you.
So, Karen, tell us about your dad. Your dad seemed to be a big influence on your life and your writing style and your singing and songwriting career. So, what was it about your father that influenced you to this extent?
Well, I think because my dad was a singer, great voice, by the way, great phrasing, love Frank Sinatra, used to try and sing just like him, and was a drummer. So in the home growing up, the home was always filled with sounds of big band music, like um, Count Basie and tons of big band music, some Latin music. So it was very well rounded. And I think when all the kids my age, we would discuss this as we were growing up, going to school, they had pop in the home. I always had big band, jazz,
Mhm.
swing, Duke Ellington. And so I just naturally developed a love for that style of music. And I love the romantic lyrics in all those songs.
When we talk about you starting piano at the age of 12, what got you started? Was there a piano in the house? You just sat down and started banging away on it, or did that start at an earlier age?
No, actually, our neighbors down the road were selling the piano. I think we paid $50 for it, and it was in their basement. So I think it was about another $150 just to move it
Right.
and get into our home. I just love to sing. I love to sing. And even at that age, I would come up with melodies. So once I had my first piano, I started piano lessons. And then, of course, I discovered very quickly that as much as I enjoyed my piano lessons and my teacher was great, um, I loved getting into chords, playing chords, and creating my own music. And that's really where it all started. So once I actually had the instrument in front of me, David, I couldn't leave it alone. You know, like most parents are saying, come on now, practice, practice, practice. We're paying for lessons. My mom would say, could you give me a break? Just give it a rest, Karen. But I loved it. It just seemed to open up a whole new world to me.
When you started to write your music at the age of 15, what inspired you to write your own music? A lot of performers and artists, they do covers
Right,
and they make a great career out of doing covers and becoming session artists. And then there's another group that ventures off into that songwriting of their own. What was
right.
it that inspired you to write your own music as opposed to a career of covers?
I guess it's because it still goes back to the early exposure in the home, David. And once I started discovering chords and really luscious and sophisticated chord progressions, like I love Burt Bacharach. I loved his music. I know that my peers didn't think he was so cool at the time, but I loved the structure of the chords, you know, like in Alfie. That to me is just a brilliant song. The way it's just constructed musically, it's just so clever and yet so pleasing. And so for me, it was more of a chance to express myself, just finding my own chords. And quite honestly, I had no idea what they were called. I had no idea what those, this one was like, oh, yeah, it's got that note in it. I like that one. And it was only much later on that I discovered, okay, you really like flat fives and major ninths. And and some of the 11th chords, but didn't have a clue what they were at the time. But I think that's why it was just a good way for me to express myself. I think if I was an artist, then I probably would have done that, and like a visual artist. But I was never any good at drawing or painting, but I love to kind of analyze, listen to a song and try and figure out what chords were there, and like really interesting chords to me. I didn't really care too much about the 1, 4, 5 songs, but the really interesting chords I always found a challenge, and it really helped me develop my ear.
It reminds me of the great writing duo of Taupin and Elton John, Bernie Taupin and Elton John,
Mhm.
and one would write the lyrics. So Taupin would write lyrics, send them over to Elton John. He'd put a melody to it, and sometimes it was vice versa. When you're writing your music, do the lyrics come first, or does the song come first?
Usually the chords, the melody comes first.
Mhm.
Yeah. That's not every time, but most of the time I think about that. I think about um, kind of a hook, that's something that's going to grab me in the chorus, or something that I'm going to be able to relate to, or that I think that other people, will be able to relate to. So usually, most of the time, I would say it is the music, and then the lyrics come later. And sometimes I write lyrics and I just kind of tuck them away and wait for another time until I'm inspired by melody, and then I try and put that together.
When you were going into your very first gig, do you remember how you got it? I mean, you said you played in coffee houses.
I
Did you just
do.
walk into the coffee house and say, "Hey, I see you have a piano over there. Can I play?"
No, my sister Kim was waitressing at a place in Hess Village in Hamilton. And it was a really nice French restaurant. And she said, "Hey, my sister plays piano." They got a piano. And she said, "Can she come and play it and just try it out?" And they said, "Sure." So while my other friends were working at Burger King, I went into Hess Village, the new Burger King in Burlington. I was jealous I wasn't working there. And I went in on the weekends, started off one night a week, one weekend night a week. And I was there, I think, for over a year. But I wasn't legally old enough to be in there. So I would have to leave on my breaks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then because I served alcohol, so I that's what I remember. And then so that's really how I got my first. That was my first paid gig. But I played in coffee houses, and a really supportive high school teacher who I recently just saw again last week and sent me some old photos of when I was in my last year of high school. And we used to have a yearly pop show, and it featured all the musicians from that high school. He was really, in my last year, he was a great supporter. He played guitar, sang. We did some duets together, some covers. He was really encouraging, and he's the one that got me some connections into some local coffee houses. And I was very grateful for that because he was so supportive.
How do you decide on what name to put to a song? Uh, when you, I mean, the one about TP, toilet paper, okay, that might have been pretty obvious, but there's other songs when you're writing them. Does the song name come from the hook? Does it come from a line in the song? What's your thought process around it?
Well, usually it's supposed to. I mean, that's kind of the formula that we've always heard. It was interesting when I was working with Paul Linson, who produced the last album. He's just an amazing musician and producer, um, and he said, because there was a song, the title track called "Worth the Wait," and the chorus was, I kept saying the word "long shot," and so I thought, well, I'm just going to call it "long shot." And he said to me, "Well, why call it long shot?" I said, "Well, because it's kind of the formula. That's what you do. You keep saying that word a lot. It's long shot." He said, "Well, what about the last line, worth the wait?" And I thought, oh, you're right, because the song really was about in the waiting, worth the
Hmm.
wait, and not the negative. Oh, looks like it's a long shot. So I have changed my mind about that recently in some of the newer songs I've written. That it's not the most obvious. And I also think it's kind of a little more interesting too.
Well, let's get into one of the songs that Karen wrote. Worth the Wait is the album. It was released in August of 2021. This album was 5 years in the making and never had a timeline. As it turned out, this song became Karen's hope, joy, and fight song as she battled a severe health issue in 2018. So let's take a listen to singer-songwriter Karen Thornton and her song, Worth the Wait.
So you have been shut down, made to feel a fool once more. Your confidence is scattered on the floor. Get yourself together, 'cause pretty soon the tide will turn. You won't be down for long, you'll see, you'll learn. And it seems a long shot, such a ways to go. And it seems a long shot, longer than you may know. Oh, but don't you worry, don't you hesitate, because the story of your life will be worth the wait. Yeah, the story of your life will be worth the wait. Anything can happen, and that's the wonder of this life. It's not always doom and gloom and strife. Get yourself together, 'cause pretty soon the tide will turn. You won't be down for long, you'll see, you'll learn. And it seems a long shot, such a ways to go. And it seems a long shot, longer than you may know. Oh, but don't you worry, don't you hesitate, because the story of your life will be worth the wait. Yeah, the story of your life will be worth the wait. And it seems a long shot right now from where you stand. Oh, it seems a long shot, not exactly what you planned. But don't you ever give up, 'cause it's never, never too late. Because the story of your life will be worth the wait. Yeah, the story of your life will be worth the wait. Yeah, the story of your life will be worth the wait. Do-da-do-da-dum-dum.
That was Karen Thornton with her song, Worth the Wait. Karen, that song has some deep meaning for you. Uh, the song was originally written for someone else, but it became very personal to you. So tell us what the inspiration for writing that song was and how it did become your own song.
Sure. A couple different reasons. I needed another song to go on the album. And that in particular was written for someone else who was going through a difficult time. And it was my way of trying to encourage them and say, you know what, this is a part of your life right now. But this is not like, it's a part of your story that's being written, but it's not your whole story. So, have some faith and just trust that you're going to come through this, and you'll look back and go, wow, that was a small part of my story. It was a big thing, but I've come through it. And the story of my life really is, it's being written, and it will be worth the wait. And I think for me, because the album took so long, it was a good song to write because it was 5 years. And it was my friend from high school, and we just had such a wonderful time doing this. And he was busy doing so many other projects. He does a lot of scoring and editing for film. And he's the one that encouraged me to record this song with real strings. That was 21-piece string orchestra from Macedonia. That was a Skype session, which was absolutely amazing, just to sit there and watch on the screen and see this orchestra playing your music. It was incredible. But that song, when I went in to go and record it, in between that time, I'd gotten a diagnosis of breast cancer. And it felt like, oh my goodness, like it came out of nowhere. And I shouldn't have thought that way because, there's so much cancer and in most families that I shouldn't have really been surprised, but you do. It's so easy to encourage someone else that's going through something, you'll get through this. You're going to be okay. And then when it hit me, it kind of really threw me. And I thought, you know what? Here I am always encouraging everyone else. And I'm a person of faith as well. And I would often, pray with people who were going through things. And all of a sudden, when it was my diagnosis, and even though the prognosis was very good and it was very early detection, and I was very fortunate to have this type of breast cancer, which probably sounds funny to some people, but I was told if you're going to have a certain type, this is the one to have. And this was, 6 years ago. And all of a sudden, I remember thinking, I was never 100% sure where this song came from, David. And now maybe this song was meant for me. And so I really listened to the words that I had written and said, come on, Karen, use this as your fight song. You're going to look back on this one day, as you have told others, and this is going to be a small part of your story, but it's not going to be your whole story.
Where do people go to find out more about you and your music, where you might be performing, what's coming up with Karen Thornton? What's the website,
Sure.
streaming services?
The website, I need to update it. I don't think I've put dates coming up. But yeah, KarenThorntonmusic.com, Karen Thornton on Spotify. You can find all my music there. And on my website has all my socials on there.
We have been in conversation with Karen Thornton. Karen, thanks for being with us.
Oh, thank you so much, David.